Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have a very interesting headline from Politico which talks about the idea of Republican Senator Joni Ernst not running for re-election and possibly retiring in 2026. Now at the time I'm recording this video, Joni Ernst has not officially made a decision yet for 2026, but the two-term Iowa senator hasn't officially announced her plans for 2026 either, though she has gone through some of the motions of launching another campaign, including recently hiring someone to manage it and announcing her annual fall fundraiser. But three people who granted anonymity to disclose private discussions said there is a rising concern among fellow Senate Republicans that Ernst will rather retire than run for re-election, giving Republicans another seat to defend next fall. Many will be watching closely for clues next week when Ernst files new campaign fundraising totals. She raised just over $1 million in the first quarter of 2025, a solid but not overwhelming number for an end-cycle senator. Asked about the senator's 2026 plans, Ernst spokesperson Palmer Brigham declined to say definitively that she would run again, saying Senator Ernst is focused on her work delivering for Iowans in the Senate to make Washington squeal, making President Trump's historic tax cuts permanent through the One Big Beautiful Bill, and advancing a strong NDAA. Ernst has told people as recently as this past month that she is still considering whether she wants to run again, according to a fourth person granted anonymity to discuss the matter. Iowa isn't in the top tier of potential pickup opportunities for Democrats. Their best bets are the seat being vacated by Tom Tillis in North Carolina and Susan Collins in Maine. But Democrats do view Iowa as being in play, especially if Trump and his party are facing steep headwinds by next November. When asked about Ernst, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said in a brief interview Thursday, "I'm doing everything I can to encourage her to run for re-election. Ultimately, that's a decision she'd have to make. I think she's moving forward," Thune said. Multiple Democrats are already in this race, including Iowa State Senator Zach Wahls and Iowa State Representative J.D. Scholten. If Ernst were to decide not to run, Republicans believe they already have at least one compelling candidate waiting in the wings. Two of the people who granted anonymity said that Representative Ashley Hinson is highly likely to enter the race if Ernst does decide to bow out. Hinson, a former TV news anchor, is the most formidable fundraiser in the Iowa House delegation. The $2.2 million she reported in her campaign coffers earlier this year was only about $800,000 behind what Ernst had available to spend. Hinson and multiple aides did not respond to requests for comments on this news. And then the article goes into a bit of backstory on Ernst and some of her recent comments she's made over the past few years. I've done videos covering that, so if you do want to, there's other videos I've done you can check out for that if you're interested in that front. So this is very interesting, because it's been long assumed now that Joni Ernst was going to be the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate again in 2026 as the incumbent U.S. Senator. But let's go down the possibility of maybe she decides not to. Well, then I think Ashley Hinson, the U.S. Representative, is more likely going to be the Republican nominee and candidate if she does decide to run. On the Democratic side of things remain pretty similar no matter what. Nathan Sage, J.D. Scholten, and Zach Wahls are three Democrats that are running in this race already. Two other Democrats, Jackie Norris, the chair of the Des Moines School Board and former Chief of Staff to the First Lady of the United States, 2009-2011 for Michelle Obama. It is very possible she could enter this race. She has expressed interest in running, as well as Joshua Turek, a state representative from the 20th District. So the candidates for the Democratic side have already established themselves who they are going to be. But right now, this race still shows it could become relatively competitive. Inside Elections has it as solid Republican. Click Political Report and Saddle Crystal Ball have it as likely Republican, and Race to the White House has it as lean Republican. Now, in the early hypothetical polling, there was only one poll done by the Democratic Public Policy Polling that showed Ernst against a generic Democrat was only about a 2-point difference. And Ernst is someone the Democrats are targeting a lot in 2026. Even though Iowa in 2024 voted for Donald Trump by 13.2%, that is a likely Republican win. At the Senate level, the last election was in 2022, where Senator Chuck Grassley won by 12.2%. But in 2020, Joni Ernst only won by 6.5%. Still a likely Republican win, but a lot more of a solid Republican win than both Trump and Grassley had in the state of Iowa. It should be worth noting when Ernst first got elected back in 2014, she won by 8.3%. Another likely Republican win, but of the two senators from Iowa, Ernst seems to be the one that's more vulnerable to a potential Democratic upset than Chuck Grassley, the other senator from Iowa. So Iowa is a state that has certainly moved into the likely Republican direction. From 2020 to 2024, Iowa shifted 5 more points towards President Trump. From 2016 to 2024, Iowa shifted 3.8% more towards the Republican direction. Just to give you an idea, from 2012 to 2024, Iowa has shifted roughly 19 points from Mitt Romney to Donald Trump in 2012 to 2024. So Iowa's moving to be a lot more reliable red state. But Democrats are hoping in a midterm election environment that should be the most Democratic favorable election they've had in a pretty long time now, that maybe Iowa could be competitive. And I think a lot of Democrats will acknowledge the fact that this Senate race in Iowa, when everything is said and done, is likely going to be a Republican win. But the Democrats are hoping for a strong enough midterm election environment where President Trump and the Republicans are doing so poorly that maybe that spills over into a state like Iowa potentially being competitive. Now, as for the 2026 Senate map right now, I do currently have Iowa in the likely Republican category, and if Joni Ernst is the Republican nominee, I will be leaving it in that threshold. However, I do think Ernst has the possibility of winning here in the smaller end of that likely side, around a 6.5 to 7 point victory once again. If Joni Ernst is not, I could see Democrats feeling very optimistic, similar with North Carolina with Tom Tillis retiring, saying that without an incumbent in the race, the Democrats have a better chance of winning. And I actually think that one's a little bit more of a mixed bag in Iowa. I think Ashley Hinton would be a pretty strong Republican candidate, and she also would not have the baggage of some of the statements that Joni Ernst has made in the last few weeks or so. Specifically, I believe it was about Medicare and her "we're all going to die" comment. That certainly is going to rub voters the wrong way in Iowa for sure. But with Ashley Hinton in this race, she wouldn't have that baggage. The only baggage she would have would be running as a Republican in a midterm election that's supposed to be Democratic favorable. So I think if it's Ashley Hinton, I think Iowa still remains in the likely Republican category. It's interesting because the governor's race I actually do have going lean Republican, so Iowa could potentially get more competitive, but I think the Senate race is more likely to stay in the Republican side of things, where the governor's race could potentially get close. As for how Iowa voted in 2024, as I mentioned, a 13.2% win for President Trump. He won by a lot. He won almost every single county in the state. President Trump was able even to defeat Kamala Harris in Davenport and Scott County in Davenport, Iowa, one of the largest cities in Iowa. Trump was able to win there. Cedar Rapids ended up going for Kamala Harris by about 10 points, 54-44. And Des Moines, the capital of Iowa, did go for Kamala Harris 55-44. But you can see President Trump really drove up the numbers in a lot of these rural counties and such throughout Iowa, including in Sioux City as well, where Trump won 61-38. So for the Democrats, winning a Senate race in Iowa in 2026 is going to be an uphill battle, and I think it likely will remain that way pretty much no matter what. But if the election environment got so bad for the Republicans that Democrats are winning the generic ballot by like 9 or 10 points or something, I could see Iowa getting very competitive. And if Joni Ernst is the incumbent, or if the race is open, I could see it being a competitive race. But given how Iowa has trended over the last few election cycles, I think it's more likely than not we're going to see Iowa continue to be a likely Republican state. But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. What do you think about this election? Do you think Joni Ernst will run for re-election again, or will she not? Do you think it's possible the Democrats could actually elect a senator from Iowa again in 2026? Leave your thoughts all down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video.